Although some of my videos may make you think otherwise, tropes aren't inherently a bad thing. Sure, many shows and movies misuse them.
Why are you talking like that?
Talking like what?
Like an offensive version of a gay guy.
A lot. But in certain circumstances, they can be a handy tool for writing actual complex characters, not just a lazy stereotype to fall back on. One of the main focuses of the new Amazon Prime show, The Wilds, is developing each character. Rather than have the audience create connections with them in present day, though, which could have also worked, they tell character stories through flashbacks. Flashbacks are a trope in and of themselves, but they do help to facilitate the fleshing out of each character. Each show explores a different character, just like The Wild's inspiration, Lost, did. Characters are also developed through flash forwards to interviews with them. Another trope, the interview in the future to narrate. I won't give any spoilers, however, I will say that this trope is mildly subverted by adding actual action in these flash forwards. Anyway, it's through these flashbacks and flash forwards that we learn a majority of characters' important traits and backstories. Many of these characters are pretty interesting, but this isn't because of a lack of tropes. In fact, it's the very opposite. Most characters align with the trope. At the start of The Wilds, which I promise not to spoil, it seems as if all the characters are going to consist of underdeveloped stereotypes. These were occasionally subverted at the start, but mostly just played straight.
Fat, the true basic bitch.
But the characters, despite and even because of being based on tropes, were developed. At the start, they're not. They slot rather well into stereotypes. Fatten is the mean, popular, girly girl.
I get called a girly girl like it's a bad thing, so I'm double the amount of girl. And somehow that's not feminist. It's ridiculous.
Shelby is the rich, white, God-loving Texan.
I do family, I do Jesus, I do pageants.
Nor is analytical and seemingly emotionless.
You're from San Francisco. You hate being homeschooled. You work at your family's restaurant. You collect erasers. You have 2 pugs named Coco and Jax, and you're existentially prepared to admit that you like pink.
You get the idea. Characters also each have one trait that almost defines them. Leah's paranoid, Tony's hot-headed, Rachel loves sports.
So you play basketball?
Nora looks after her sister.
Who do you keep looking at?
My sister.
At first, this seems like a bad choice. But here's the thing, characters are hard to create. Often some sort of jumping off point is necessary to create a cohesive character. In the first episode, this jumping off point is clear, and then, as necessary, the writers, well, jump off from there. When a character is too tropey, it's generally because what was meant to be a jumping off point wasn't jumped off of. A trope is implemented and then not complexified or subverted. That's when criticisms might become necessary. But tropes aren't inherently bad. The Wilds and many great TV shows and movies managed to go from a trope to a real-feeling character. Let's take our stereotypical popular girl, Fatten. She was the character who worried me the most at the start of the show, since she most obviously adhered to a trope. But the show took the time to develop her character, giving her flaws, strengths, interests, a backstory, all the components necessary to create a fully fleshed out character. Though Fatten is complexified, maintaining her popular girl nature while developing more character traits, characters can also be subverted, shedding or changing personality traits. I'm gonna spoil some things about the character Shelby here, so if you don't want episode 8 of the first season of The Wilds to be spoiled, just skip ahead to the number on screen. So, Shelby. A perfect example of trope subversion. She's a self-described lover of family, Jesus, and pageants, and that seems to be all she is. Well, that and homophobic.
I'm a Christian, alright? From a very Christian home, so I'm allowed to be a little skeeved out.
That is, until we learn that, spoiler incoming, she's unhappy with the life she's been forced into and has been questioning her sexuality for a while. Overall, it turns out that Shelby isn't who we thought she was. Her ultra-religious, homophobic character is shattered when we learn this, which is essentially what trope subversion is, taking a trope and flipping it on its head. Okay, spoilers over. So despite this, subverting tropes isn't necessary in order to use tropes well. In fact, if done too often, they can lose their unexpected nature. Instead, characters might need to be developed. If a show decides to use, say, the nerd trope, what's really important is that this character is just as complex as any character. That although a so-called nerd, they still have a fully fleshed out personality. They're developed. For better or for worse, tropes are everywhere. If you don't believe me, just go to tvtropes.org and click on random trope. There are so many. Making a conscious decision to use a trope is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. If a character, for example, is going to follow the girly girl trope, this doesn't even have to be subverted. The girly girl doesn't need to secretly hate the way she is or grow into a tomboy. She just needs to be developed and complex, like any character should be. When you think about it, some of your favorite characters might be able to fit in these trope boxes, but that doesn't make them stereotypes, nor does it make them poorly written. It just means they're a more complexified version of a trope, and that's not a problem. In fact, this transition from trope to developed character can be found in most of the shows and movies I've talked about on this channel. In New Girl, Schmidt diverges from the douchebag trope. In Community, Annie could be included under many tropes, including the goody two-shoes. And in The Office, Jim is practically the definition of the everyman. I know I'm pretty critical of various tropes on this channel, but the concept of using tropes is by no means a bad thing. At their core, they're merely a form of categorization, merely a tool for writing. So sometimes we need to embrace them. Many incredibly famous movies aren't afraid to be upfront about using tropes.
You were the chosen one!
And as long as these tropes are being presented in innovative, complex ways, using them is a great idea. Oh, shoot, sorry. I guess I just used the freeze frame ending trope. Oh no, and I guess pointing that out makes me the meta guy. And this is a meta twist. And now it's an overly long gag. Sorry about that. No more tropes, I promise. Just wanted to say thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. It means I can finally use the community feature, interact with you guys more, ask questions about what you like, so that is really exciting. So thank you for helping me hit 1,000, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.